Hello, and welcome to the Private Practice Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Adam Robin, and today we have a special guest, and we're starting a new series. It's going to be called Client of the Month. Client of the Month. And today I've got a guest. His name is Sam Jackson, and he's been working with me for about a year now. And today we're going to just learn a little bit about his story, learn a little bit about his company, some of his keys to success, and kind of where he's going. And so he's got a lot of cool things to share. And Sam, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How you doing today, man?
Yeah, doing well. It's funny being on the podcast because I've listened to it for such a long time, so it's kind of a full circle moment.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I was right here in this spot when I recorded my first podcast with Nathan, and we did the same thing. So it's like full circle for me too. I was one of Nathan's first coaching clients. You were one of my first coaching clients. So it's really cool. It's really cool to see us all grow, you know?
Absolutely.
So tell me where are you from? Tell me your story. I want to hear more about kind of like you, where you're from, where you grew up, just you on the personal side. Tell me your story.
So I'm from Greenville, South Carolina originally, and kind of made my way through the state to school at University of South Carolina, and then went to PT school at the Medical University of South Carolina, which is in Charleston. So um, lived in Charleston for a couple years, got married to my wife. We were there probably 5 years in total. And then we had a son, and started thinking through what next steps would be for us. I had been a staff therapist for a couple years and loved being a PT, but kind of wanted something more and was very interested in the business side of things. So I think once you have a kid, that can be a big um, it can be a big motivator, and you have to figure out a lot of things of what you want to be about, where what's next. So we started thinking through a lot of those questions, like where do we want to settle down? Thinking through, we wanted my wife to be able to stay home from work, so I was going to need a salary increase there. So just kind of figuring out all the different options, and eventually ended up with the idea of moving back home to Greenville, being closer to family, and then trying to start my own clinic.
Yeah, man. It's cool. I like how you talk about having kids because it does change you, doesn't it? Right? Because when you don't have kids, you're just a little bit more selfish. You know what I mean? Like life's a little bit more about you, right? And kind of you don't really think about like the impact that you have on the world as much.
Mm-hmm.
But once you start having children and you start recognizing like, wow, like the degree in which you're going to impact this person's life, you know, things change, right? You start thinking about like, okay, like you mentioned, like, what am I all about? Like, what do I want to stand for? Like, how do I want to impact the world? You know, it starts making you think a little differently, you know?
Yeah. And I would say even that was, as we talk more about the business stuff, that was a big motivator. Like I said, having kids, and it's also been kind of a helpful, like help keep me in check, and probably help me have to learn to delegate more instead of just doing things all on my own. Because, my wife and I, when we talked about it and when we're going to pursue this thing, it was like, yes, there might be some seasons where I'm really going to have to work hard and stay up late and wake up early. And I've had those seasons, but the long-term goal has been to own a business, not to own a job that you have to do all this stuff, but to really own a company and a business to where you have a little bit more of that freedom. So that's been cool, and it probably helped me in the beginning when your tendency is just to try to do everything, to get checked a little bit and be like, hey, I'm doing this for my family and for my kids, not so I can just be an absent father who works all the time and is stressed all the time. And so that's kind of
that was me. That was me for a while. And what I heard out of that, which is awesome, I heard that you just have your priorities straight. You know, like you knew what was most important, and you stayed really true to that, and that helped you not only be a better father but be a better business owner as well.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, a big part of it too is just listening to these podcasts, and eventually you've had, I mean, if you've listened to it for a while, you've heard from different owners, and a lot of people have the same stories of they start working, they open, things start getting busy, and then they kind of get consumed by their job and reach this point of burnout. And so I think I'm grateful to get to hear stories like yours, and a lot of other owners, and you start to recognize some of those patterns of, hey, when I stepped out of treatment, that's when everything changed. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of went into ownership with, all right, everybody says you will eventually have to step out of treatment, and I know that's going to be hard, but like you got to trust the process. You got to follow the path that's been laid. So um, yeah, that's been a helpful thing to get to learn from the mistakes, or just from the wisdom of others.
Yeah. You know, let's talk about that a little bit. And you mentioned that it was hard. Tell me about why it was hard. Like, what were some of the things that you battled with, if you will, like internally, like knowing that you should step out of treatment, but like not, like what was so hard about it? Like, what was the battle that you were having about stepping out of treatment?
Yeah, I think the probably specifically for stepping out of treatment is you've built this business. You've, like in my case, picked up my family, we moved, we made some huge financial commitments in a lot of different ways, and then just having to like, if I'm treating everybody and I'm doing everything, you feel that semblance of control, like it's going to stop with me. So I think just having to let go of that and having to trust the team, and starting to realize that now the job isn't to do everything on your own, but you have to be learn how to be a leader and learn how to help your team grow, and like to trust them, and maybe a little bit of a mindset shift on what my purpose is was with the company.
Sam, how long have you been in business?
Yeah, so I opened officially February of 2023. Guess I should have mentioned that.
Yeah. So you're talking a year and a half. Does that sound right?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
And you're already talking about being a leader and all that stuff.
Yeah.
What are you, nuts? That's amazing, man. Tell us about your company.
Yeah, so company's Foundation Physical Therapy in Greenville. Yeah, I guess you kind of hit on it. So opened in February 2023, and I guess kind of how the company, kind of the my journey as an owner, and in terms of hiring different staff, everything. I pretty much did everything for the first 5 or 6 months. In probably July of 23, I hired part-time admin front desk, and that was amazing. That was like a no-brainer. Just to not have to be the one who's doing all the paperwork and collecting all the payments and all that. That was a huge, huge boost to me. And then I got to the point where I knew I needed to hire another PT. That was actually when I reached out to you to get some coaching, because I was like kind of in over my head when it comes to hiring a new PT, and just a lot of different questions about that. So hired my first PT in September, and then honestly, with some of your guidance, I was interviewing some different candidates, and had a couple of good ones. And you were like, well, can you keep that, one of the good ones on the line, and see if she could start potentially later? I was like, seems like a good idea. Let's do it. So I talked with her, and we talked about, hey, what about starting in a couple months from now? And she agreed. So she started at the very end of November. Um, so that's when I hired my second PT in December. Had my second son, or my wife and we had our second son. So that was a crazy time, and that was also a little deadline the whole first year of like moving, new baby, and then another new baby on the way. So there's a lot of stress outside, or a lot of stuff going on outside of work and inside of work. Um, but after that, had another PT on the line, one of my friends from PT school, and he kind of agreed to start in February. So third PT in February, fourth PT in July, and now pretty much every time I hired a PT, I tried to step out of treatment a little bit more and a little bit more, to where now I'm treating like 3 to 5 hours a week. And most of the time it's if patients I want to treat, or if a doctor really needs to get somebody in, I'll try to see somebody.
It's amazing, man. It's freaking amazing. And so you, one of the more recent events that you, so tell me about like the space that you're in now, and like where you're at as far as like being able to fill that space, and then kind of what your plans are over the next like 3 to 6 months.
So right now, in a good location, a good spot, it's but we're essentially growing out of it. So square footage wise, it's probably good, but it's 2 stories, and no elevator or anything, and it's was just not really made for a PT clinic, so it gets really loud, really crowded. So um, I guess kind of get to the point where you're getting busy, and then I had to. My first instinct would have been, okay, it's time to go and look for another clinic to try to see about opening up another location. And I'm grateful for coaching, for you and some of your advice, which was, you know, essentially as long as you can stay under one roof, like the better things can be. And I guess it's just one roof. Like I still have a lot of stuff I need to do as an owner before I open another clinic. So the idea of opening another clinic is really scary. The idea of moving to a bigger clinic is actually exciting, and you can look at the numbers and you could see how things would improve. Like now that I'm already a functioning company, and or the company is already functioning. So yeah. Anyways, hopefully you can cut out some of this rambling.
Yeah, we'll get it. We'll get you sounding smart, man. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, so right now, started looking for new buildings, and I'm in the process of trying to get under contract with a bigger space that would double our square footage, be all one level, increase parking, solve a lot of problems from the clinical side of things, and um, yeah, and that is something that is crazy. Is thinking about where I was before, when I was in Charleston working full time and trying to figure out, am I going to rent? Am I going to buy? Where am I going to be? Can I even make it as a company? To now, when you're looking for a place, and you just have a little bit more confidence in myself as a leader, and as the business as a whole, of like, hey, we're gonna keep seeing people. We actually, I'd like to be looking to hire another PT right now. I just don't think I don't think we could um, fit one in our current space. So that's been a cool thing to.
Awesome, man. Yeah, because we've been working together for about a year, and I've just been amazed at your growth, just personally, professionally, like your company. Um, and I wasn't able to write all that down, but I think what I heard was you've hired 4 PTs this year. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 PTs this year. You have outgrown your space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, completely. 97% has stepped out of treatment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a new location that you're going to be moving into.
Yeah.
And you had a baby.
Yeah, and a baby, and a house, lots of big stuff.
It's just amazing, man.
Yeah, the first time we talked, even on our intro call, you said you'll be shocked at how quickly things can grow. That it kind of seems like something that's easy to say, but I didn't know how much I believed you then. But now when I take the time to actually look back a year, and yeah, within a year, I fired 4 PTs, which is crazy how exponential things can be.
Yeah. So tell me, so right now you're at 4 PTs plus yourself, and you have one admin, correct? And then a virtual assistant that you have on your team as well.
Yeah. Just started with the virtual assistant.
Yeah. So now we have a VA team. So you're gearing up for something really cool. Tell me about, I did want to get into your company purpose and values, but yeah, tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about like the culture that you're trying to create at Foundation, and what your purpose is, and the values, and tell me about how that's evolved over the last year.
Yeah, I think it's definitely still evolving. And when I think about that in the terms of coaching lenses, and starting the program, something that was helpful was there's times when I would tell you, I think I need to get my purpose and values down. And you're like, not right now, not right now. And so I was like, okay, I won't. And then I guess really when I started hiring people and maybe stepping out of treatment where you're like, you really need to hone in on that. So, um, our purpose is to help others live life to the full. And then we have different values, excellence, gratitude, accountability, um, should have written them all down because I'm like on. So I can think about it when I actually think about it. Grit,
Put the pressure on.
Yeah, gratitude, accountability, grit. So it's been really cool to have the values and to use that as culture building and getting to have those to like talk about them at team meetings and to even if there is something that's going on with a physical, like with one of my physical therapists, if something happens or, it's cool to be able to fall back on those values and to be able to say like, hey, that's not humility. Humility is the other one.
There you go.
Not putting others before ourselves. That's not being grateful for the opportunities we had. That's not really doing things with excellence. So let's get to the bottom. How can we solve that problem? So it's been a cool framework, and maybe I've heard you guys say this too, but it allows you to kind of replicate yourself and my hopes for the clinic and my hopes for who we're treating. Is one thing I love about being in Greenville and a place where I grew up is you're getting to treat family and friends and my friends' parents and all that, but there's also an added burden of responsibility if you mess up, or if one of my family members or friends' family members comes to PT and they don't have a good experience, and it's kind of my name's I'm the owner. The buck stops with me, so it's a cool way to try to continue to cultivate a culture.
Yeah, you're responsible for that, man. So you've just done so much. What are some of the things that you feel like you've learned? Like, what were some of the biggest lessons or the biggest just kind of insights and ahas that you've had over the last year that you feel like really led to some of the success you've been having?
And I think even if I took it back to before we were coaching together, I was actually working with another coach, who was the first time that I worked with a coach, and he was more of a productivity coach, but was working on me with some business things. And I think it was like a Gary Keller example, but to summarize it was kind of like, if you follow a plan, if you follow the path, like you can reach goals. And one of the examples is like, think about the people who would run a marathon. Um, you know, and I think we've all probably had patients that get to be 60 years old and they run a marathon, or 50 years old. I'm thinking of one right now, and it's like, how do they do that? It's because they follow the plan. Week 1, you run 1 mile. Week 2, you slowly bump it up, and like you just do the little things every day that you're supposed to be doing, and then you look back and you see all the progress you've made. And I feel like that's kind of what I've done. I don't really look at the last year and think that I've done something amazing or incredible, but it was kind of that idea of following the path, follow the plan, maybe a little plot activity. Like you just plod along, you do the next right thing, and then you can look back and see all the progress you've made.
I think that's beautiful. I think that that's the secret that people have a hard time. Like, that's not an exciting thing. Follow the plan. You know what I mean? Like, follow the plan and then you'll be successful. And it's like, yeah, but what's the secret?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, there is no secret. There's no secret. Like, the way that I experience you and the clients that do really well with us is like, they just follow this framework of, they step out of treatment and they work on the business. They delegate. They have a team meeting. They work on their marketing process. They work on their onboarding process. They train their team, right? They track their metrics. They meet with their biller. They meet with their accountant. And there's a few other ones. But like, if you just do all those things consistently, and it's like, I don't care. I tend to use inflammatory language, but like, I'm not worried about your feelings. I'm not worried about what's convenient. Just follow the plan anyway and just do the boring things and make them the priority. And then before you know it, you have four therapists and your clinic is full of patients, right? Like you and I, we've worked together. We haven't really put together. I mean, I know you've done a lot of work, but it's not like, oh, we just implemented Adam's 4-step marketing plan and it got all the patients, or we just implemented Adam's 2-step recruiting system and all the PTs came flocking. It's like you just did the little things and everything kind of like lines up. So I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And like you mentioned the team meeting where there's a lot of simple things like that I was like, okay, Adam's successful. He's worked with successful owners. And if this is what successful owners do, then we need to do a team meeting and just trying to start off on the right foot. And then afterwards, I started seeing, man, like this is really important. I can't imagine not having that team meeting now and that the time with the staff and get to work on stuff. So that was maybe just a little bit of humility, like just me recognizing I don't know it all, and I want to follow some wise counsel from people who have done things before me and actually follow it, implement it. So
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. So keys to success, what I'm hearing for you is you mentioned delegate more, right? Step out of treatment. That was a big one that you mentioned, which I agree with both of those. And then do the little things, i.e., like create the plan and just follow the plan.
yeah,
And like not your feelings, not your emotions, just follow the plan, right?
yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So, what do you do for fun?
What I do for fun.
Yeah.
I love spending time with my family. Love spending time. I mean, I to be fair, the past year has been pretty crazy, so I really
Work.
haven't had a ton of time for fun.
Mm,
I kind of hit on it earlier, but I really did try to prioritize, family, church, like those things that are really important. But I haven't had a whole lot of time for fun. But um, as things are kind of stepping down, um, yeah, love it. I just love spending time with people, playing pickleball, traveling, South Carolina football,
Oh yeah.
fantasy football. Big guy. Yeah.
Cool, man. And so as you think about as we're approaching, you know, we're going to be approaching Q4 soon, right? So how do you see your company ending out the rest of the year? And then have you started thinking about like, man, like what does your company look like next year? Like have you started thinking about what your vision is?
Ooh, probably not yet. Not too much yet. So, I mean, I think the plan right now is to see if we can close on this new location, and that would be a big part. So that would probably be transitioning there in early 2025. Um, or if it's not there, trying to find another space that we can continue to grow into. Um, and I think other other things that I guess I have thought about this, but uh, building out like a clinic director role.
Mm-hmm.
Um, to right now, I'm still the clinic director, even though I don't treat that much. But build like delegating that to somebody, working on um, processes and procedures, onboarding. There's lots of stuff I can be working on, which is always funny when people are like, "If you're not treating, what do you do?" I'm like, "There's a lot to do." Um, so yeah, I guess that's the 20 in ending this year is just finishing the year strong. Um, it's kind of cool because now probably just now is like the time where every time like basically just investing back into the business, back into the business, back into the business, and now looking at profit and loss statements at the end of the month, it's like, oh, now there's actually some profit there, and I
Mm-hmm.
actually can see some of the fruit of all the hard work. So probably just making up some money and making some money for the rest of the year, and then going and investing that immediately into the new building again.
Nice. Yeah, it's cool that I love the stage you're in. It's like you kind of get most things pretty good in your company. Decent little marketing plan, little sales process, team meetings, onboardings kind of built out, getting some policies and procedures. Everything's still a little chaotic, but it's there. And then once you commit to putting a director in place and being like, hey, here's what I've built. It's not all perfect, but it's good enough for now. And then you're able to not only delegate patient care, but delegate like all of the day-to-day things to where you not only have objective time, but you have like mental capacity to really like dive in deep into your purpose and values. Like, let's go all the way back to the beginning and like go deeper into the purpose and values, go deeper into the sales process, deeper into the marketing plan, deeper into the onboarding process, and like bulletproof it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then once you kind of get through that and you build a VA team behind you, now you can get into the place where you're ready to scale. Like if you wanted to open up another location or anything like that, like you've got you've got a company that's really, really ready. So that's exciting. That's super exciting. And not only like as you're diving deeper into each department of your company, you can train Forrest. Forrest, right? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can train Forrest, your new director. So really, really exciting stuff, man. So tell me.
The Forrest thing might cut that out just in case. Like,
okay.
Yeah, it's not official. I mean, I guess it will be. It will be kind of soon, but
so quick bullet points. Like if you had a practice owner, let's say somebody who just opened a clinic or was thinking about opening a clinic, what would be like the 1, 2, 3 pieces of advice you'd give them? Like if you had to just break it down to like three little bullet points, what would it be?
I think probably the first thing is you just got to think a little bit about what's the end goal, and yeah, where do you want, what's the starting with the end in mind. So I think that especially when you talk about starting with like new practice owners, and I know I was this way some too, where you might be like, oh, do I start a mobile practice and keep my overhead low? Do I do cash? Do I do insurance? And so kind of figuring out what you want a little bit there. Figuring out what you want in the beginning is obviously really important for what you want to do long term. So I guess beginning with the end in mind and getting some sort of a vision of what you want and why you're opening the practice. Number two, I definitely would recommend finding some sort of business coach, somebody to hold you accountable, somebody that's not emotional, that can look into your problems and give you some guidance and wisdom. I think is very, very helpful. And then really maybe the other thing is it's just not trying to bootstrap everything and trying to delegate as much as you can, especially in the beginning when it comes to making a website. Like there's so much stuff that feels overwhelming, and it's a lot to open a new clinic, but like that's where the productivity comes along, where if you're thinking, oh, I got to build a website, and then sometimes we go like, all right, I have to figure out how to make a website and all that. It's like, no, you don't. You just have to call somebody who knows how to make a website. Call David Straight, and he will help you out.
There you
go. Same thing for the building, where I was like freaking out because I got to the point with starting a clinic. I'm like, the next stage is I need a building so I can start getting credentialed and open an LLC and blah blah blah, whatever I had to do. It seemed really intimidating to find a building, but I was like, I can pick up the phone and call the realtor and have them help me find a building. And so, yeah, just taking those baby steps, but finding the people who can help you out, not thinking you have to do it all yourself. And networking too, talking with people who have done it is really important.
I listened to Alex Hormozy.
Yeah.
And one time he said, the most dangerous entrepreneur is the lazy entrepreneur, is the one that sees what needs to be done, but tries to identify, how can I get this done without me having to do it? Like, how can I stay at home and say it still get done? You see how there's like a degree of separation there?
Mhm.
And the quicker that we can get into that mindset and learn that skill of, number one, understanding what needs to be done and prioritizing it. And then number two, finding out how to get things done through others.
Yeah.
Not in like a dictator type of way, but like in an empowering way, so that you can stay more free to focus on the vision and the plan, and you can be more of the big picture thinker instead of the doer, right? You kind of get sucked down into the business and you can't see, right? Like if you think you're digging a ditch and you're kind of looking down at the ground the whole time and you're just keeping your head down, you might look up and you might realize like, oh man, I'm not even digging the ditch in the right direction. Like I'm supposed to be going the other way. Right. And then Sam, you're kind of standing outside the ditch, kind of keeping people in line, setting the cones up. You're going to make more progress that way. And that's the CEO. That's a CEO skill that's hard to learn. And it's just amazing that you just seem to naturally have that knack to where you you seem to not let emotions get entangled into your decision making process. Like you just follow the guidance and you just follow the plan. And that's just the key to your success. I'm actually super impressed with you, man. Like you've been killing it.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Um, wouldn't be where I am without you.
Thanks, brother.
I'd say that the other thing I thought of as we're talking about that is, and I know you see it all the time, but it's just how like PTs, we really do not have any sort of like investment kind of mindset. It's like we're all, I'm the same way, but it's like we're all kind of on the not wanting to delegate. But it's just like there's tons and tons of like money fears and not wanting to make that hire, not wanting to outsource something like, and I think that would be something that I would tell people is like you have to start viewing things as investments. Hiring another PT is an investment. Hiring a front desk is an investment. It's not gonna like if you can stay out of that realm of where you're like checking your own bank account and just focus on building the business. I think that could be really helpful. And I was able to do that because we moved back in with my parents and we sold our house in Charleston and rode the COVID wave up. And so like I'm probably naturally a more conservative guy, but in my head it was like, all right, I'm gonna give it a year where I'm just not really gonna worry too much about that and just invest. And then once you get some of the tools like the pro forma and you start seeing how much if you invest, if I go from just myself and another PT to 4 PTs, how much more you can make in profit margin and how your profit margin goes up, then you start feeling confident to make those decisions to invest in another PT, to invest in a full-time patient care coordinator. So
Yeah, it makes you get more excited about it, right? Instead of like fearful. Like, oh, this is going to take all my money. And it's like, no, this is going to give you so much more, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what I took away from that, Sam, is number one, like if you're going to open up a practice or if you're going to try to grow a practice, you got to be willing to cut down on some of the personal expenses, like move in with your parents. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't need an $80,000 truck, like get a used vehicle, paid it off, like get things back down to like really, really manageable. And when you start to see a little bit of profit margin in your practice, don't take it. Like keep it in the business, reinvest it back into the business until you can grow something that can, give you the income that you're looking for. But if you're the owner where you're at like 1.5 FTEs and you're making like $5,000 or $6,000 a month in profit, that's not enough. You know what I mean? Like it's not enough. Like you got to keep going. Like you got to get to $20,000-$30,000 a month in profit. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think the biggest mistake that I see owners make when they kind of hit that tipping point is they get to 1 or 2 FTEs in their practice and they think it's like, oh, I've made it. Like this is it. And they turn off that investment mode and they kind of get into saving mode. And it's like, no, you got to keep going. You're almost there, but you got to keep going. So
Yeah.
good stuff, man. There's probably going to be an owner or two who's going to be really inspired by your story. Like what you're doing is amazing. So if somebody who's listening to this wanted to just like shoot you a DM or shoot you an email, like how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, you could email me, Sam at foundation-pt.com. Email me there. I guess find me on LinkedIn and we can connect for a phone call. I really enjoy talking with people. It's funny you asked that about a new owner because I actually talked with a guy earlier today who's thinking about starting up, and so that was good practice for the podcast.
Awesome.
So, but yeah,
Awesome.
anybody can reach out. If they want to hear more about my experience or want to connect in any way. Happy to.
Cool, man.